What is up, guys, and welcome back. Today we're going to do something a little different. This is going to be my first game review that I'm going to put up on my channel. And who knows, if it does well, I may do another. I've had a lot of fun making this video, and me and the guys had a lot of fun playing the game and shooting the footage. So we're going to go through a quick overview of the game and how it works. And then I'll talk about some aspects of the game that I feel may appeal to people or may not appeal to other people. And then I will talk about the variant rules associated with the game and how it changes the gameplay and makes it more replayable. And then at the very end, we'll play some real game footage of myself and my friends playing the game. So without further ado, let's get into it. Today we will be talking about Rome: Fall of the Empire. And if you are a war gamer and you're looking for something a little bit shorter, a little bit of a quick hitter, I think you're going to love this game. I loved it. My friends loved it. I'm a Gen Zer, so I'm addicted to my phone, and we played this game for 3.5 hours, and I didn't check my phone once, if that tells you anything. So this game has some really interesting dynamics that I'm going to explain here. It's a 3-faction game similar to Global War 36. In your first faction, you've got the Western Roman Empire and the Eastern Roman Empire here. And the next faction is going to be a conglomerate of tribal peoples. The Sassanids, the Goths here in green, and the Franks up here in blue. And the final faction is going to be the Huns up here in the top right corner, all by themselves. And they start off very powerful, but with a small economy. So one of the cool things about this game is even though there are 3 teams, there are 6 different factions that you can play, and all 6 of them play completely differently. And I find that to be very, very interesting. So there are 3 different teams, there are 6 different factions with 6 different ways to play, and there are 5 Yes, 5 victory conditions, which is very cool. So the Western and Eastern Roman Empire win or lose together. So they have one collective victory condition, which is to own a territory of each of the tribal peoples. So 1 blue, 1 green, and 1 yellow territory at the end of a round, which is easier said than done because they go first, which means all 3 tribal peoples and the Huns get to respond and try to knock them out of their victory condition before the game ends. And then the tribal peoples each have their own victory condition, and only one of them must be met for the tribal peoples to win. So the Franks, you guessed it, are trying to capture all of France, and if they do that, then all of the tribal peoples win. The Goths are trying to capture the Balkans down here, and the Sassanids are trying to capture Turkey. And if any one of those three things happens, then the tribal peoples win. And an interesting thing about the game is, if you have 3 different players playing the tribal peoples, then they're really playing against each other. Because if 2 of the tribal peoples achieve their goals on the same turn, then the one with more money actually wins the game. So the tribal peoples are on a team, but maybe not. And finally up here we've got the Huns, who are just trying to wreck everything. Their victory condition is to control 2 red and 2 purple territories. So they're just trying to mess up the Romans, which, interestingly, may or may not lead them right through Gothic home countries. So the Goths are in a tough position, but they're also very, very strong compared to their enemy here, the Eastern Roman Empire. So I mentioned 6 different ways to play, so let's go through all 6 factions real quickly and kind of describe that in more detail. Starting off with the Western Roman Empire here, you start off with a huge economy that's 3 times as big as the next closest enemy, but you don't have many guys on the board, and the guys that you do have on the board are a little bit out of position. If you'll notice, we've got 6 guys here in Rome, we've got some guys down in Africa and Spain, we've got a guy up in England, we've got 2 cavalry way in the back of France that are a little bit out of position. The Western Roman Empire has to consolidate their power and try to push back the imminent Frankish invasion. And the Franks start a lot stronger on this border than the Romans do. You'll notice that we only have 1 infantry along the front here, and the Goths have 9 infantry, 2 cavalry, and more guys on the way. The Western Romans can become very powerful. They did in our game. If the Franks fail in their attack, then there's basically nobody opposing the Western Romans until the Huns get here. So they are undoubtedly the more powerful of the 2 Roman factions. So let's talk about little brother here, the Eastern Roman Empire. They start off in a very tough position with very few troops on both of their contested borders here, and with large armies on both borders. We've got the Goths here with 14 units ready to come into the Thracia area, which this is worth 5 IPPs right here. So a very dangerous position for the Eastern Romans to be in, as well as the Sassanids here. Also with 15 units right on this border to Syria. 12 can come into Cappadocia here. So there's not much for the Eastern Romans to do except try to die as slowly as possible. I actually find that they're quite similar to the Russians in that aspect. They're going to be on the back foot for probably most of the game, but if they can get their feet under them, they can be very, very powerful because they start with a huge economy, just like the Western Romans here. Moving into the Franks I think are in the toughest position of the tribal peoples, believe it or not, because while they do outnumber the Western Romans here, the Western Romans get a turn beforehand to place some units, and the Franks are basically against the entire might of the Western Romans at the beginning of the game here. The Goths' victory conditions are going to take them into the Balkans, so the Franks are going to have a tough time breaking through the 30 IPP income of the Western Romans with their only 8 IPP income. So, an interesting place for the Franks. Maybe they don't want to be as aggressive as the other tribes. Moving on to the Goths, they are very, very powerful. They are much stronger than the Eastern Romans here, and the Eastern Romans have a split front, so the Goths can do very well in the early game, but you've always got the menace of the Huns coming in behind you to worry about. So, it's a very interesting place for the Goths to be. Very similar with the Sassanids here. You have overmatched the Eastern Romans here at the beginning of the game, and you will probably do very well in the first few turns, but depending on what the Huns decide to do, you may start to lose your economy in the back here if we get some horses back there. And finally, the Huns, who start with a huge army. You can see this stack of cavalry, but a very, very small economy. They have the smallest economy in the game, and they have to bust through these neutrals before they can get any real work done. The obvious place to go is through Gothic land here to try to get your victory condition of 2 reds and 2 purples. But there are some other ways to go if you want some more money, which you may need if this turns into a prolonged game against the Romans. If the Romans can get back on their feet after the initial blitz of the tribal peoples, then the Huns have to be ready for a long, drawn-out game, and they have to have the economy to prepare for that. So, do you want to blitz straight into the heart of your victory conditions, or do you want to go for a more economic-based game as the Huns? It's a very, very interesting place to be. The game is balanced very, very well, which I think you will see in the gameplay. We had 1 blowout and 1 really long game, and they were very, very interesting and fun games. I think any war gamer would like this game, but if you're a big fan of lots of rules and lots of units and lots of naval combat, then maybe this game isn't for you. So the Romans start with 3 galleys, the tribal peoples start with 1, and the Huns have none. And the tribal peoples and the Huns will never really have the economy to support buying galleys. So really the naval warfare is so one-sided that if you're looking for big naval battles, it's just not going to happen. There's only 3 units in the game. They're these artillery, the infantry, and the cavalry. The majority of your purchases are just going to be infantry as the Romans, and probably infantry and cavalry as the tribal peoples. Maybe the Romans will start to buy some artillery in the later game, but there's not a whole lot of diversity in the units, which makes sense for a game of this time period. This is an ancient time period. There wasn't a lot of stuff going on, and infantry really did dominate in warfare during this time period, so it makes sense that you're going to be buying majority infantry throughout this game. This game also takes some liberties in the rulebook. It's a very short rulebook, only 2 pages of rules with a page and a half of the setup chart. It was written with the assumption that you've played Global War or Axis and Allies or some form of this type of game before. So it's a very short rulebook. It doesn't go into a ton of detail, but I think that's okay. We understood the rules fine, and if we ever had any questions, we just defaulted to, how Global War 1936 plays. So not a big deal, I don't think. But if you're a fan of really long and detailed rulebooks, then that's not what you're going to get here. This is a quick game. It's meant to be played, in one sitting, in one day, maybe even multiple games in one day. It's not going to last a long time. Our really long game lasted 2.5 hours and 6 turns. The average play time on the rule book says an hour and a half. If you're a huge wargamer, then you'll understand that in a quick hitting game like this that's only on average an hour and a half long, there's going to be a lot of RNG involved. So if you hate losing based on luck alone, then maybe this game isn't for you. I've got a feeling that this game is usually going to come down to 1 or 2 huge battles where somebody can get hosed by the dice. And if that happens, then it's just kind of over. But that's the nature of these shorter war games. As I'm sure all of you know, it's not going to be like a Global War 36 where you're playing the game for 24 hours and one bad battle isn't going to ruin you. That may happen in this game. Not saying that it's going to happen all the time, but especially with the D6 and very limited unit types, there was actually a couple times in just our one game where somebody got hosed by the dice. I think that makes it a much more interesting game. It's pretty fun. Just rolling dice, and when somebody gets a huge roll and everybody goes crazy, that happened to us a few times, and it was really, really fun. So if you like that, then you're going to love this game, guys, I promise. And the last downside is, while the map is only $25, you do have to provide your own pieces, which, if you're like me, can get expensive. I bought a ton of pieces, but you really do need a lot of pieces for this game. The Romans and Huns in particular are going to have a lot of units on the board, so you do need to be prepared for that. I recommend buying a few extra roundels than 10 for the Huns, because they will have some rapid expansion right at the beginning, and they're going to have a lot of territories that you're going to need to roundel, because they only start with the 2 in the back there, and then everything else is going to need to be roundeled. So we ended up using flipped over ones because it kind of matches the black of the Hunnic roundel, and that was good enough for us. If that's good enough for you, then feel free to do that. That's just an idea. Otherwise, I do recommend buying a couple extra Hunnic roundels than just the 10 that's recommended. While the map is cheap, only $25, and it is a gorgeous map, very, very beautiful map, buying custom pieces can get quite expensive. And lastly here, guys, we're going to talk about the optional variant rules for this game, which is the only way that we played it. We actually didn't play the base game because we thought the variant rules were so interesting. So the variant rules gives each of the 4 base game units a special ability and adds a new unit to the game, which is the General, which we denoted by these orange chips underneath our infantry units. And the Generals are also a fully functioning unit in the game that is new, and they are a powerful unit indeed. So for each of the units, we'll start with the infantry. Infantry is boosted by Generals, so their attack value gains 1, which makes them just as potent as cavalry on the attack, so these Generals are very important. The cavalry get the ability to quote-unquote blitz, meaning that they can make 2 attack moves in 1 turn, which really changes the way that the Huns work. You can see they start with a ton of cavalry there, so that double attack really gives them some interesting options in the early game. Next up, your base artillery, which are the most powerful unit in the game, become even more powerful. They get a reroll for each artillery on every round of combat, which basically makes it a 75% chance that those artillery are going to hit on every round of combat. And the galleys get a shore bombardment shot, which is very interesting and can be quite good for the Romans. Or the Franks. Remember, the Franks have a galley up here too. So those are the variant rules. There are 2 different ways to play this game. The game offers a ton of replayability, and there are a lot of different ways that you can handle these tribal peoples in the middle. You can use the Western Roman Empire to prop up the Eastern Roman Empire, or not. You can just dominate the West if you choose to. The Huns have a few different paths that they can go on, so you can get a bunch of different games in, and they will all be different. So, if you couldn't tell already, this game does receive the Board Gaming Bro seal of approval. I highly recommend it. If you like quick-hitting war games, it was very fun. And it's got a very unique dynamic, especially with these tribal peoples caught in the middle, that I honestly haven't seen before in a war game like this. So I highly recommend it, guys. If you're looking for something new and you're looking for something relatively quick that you can play in one day, maybe multiple times, then this is a very, very good game. And with all that being said, guys, let's get into the game footage of a real game being played between me and my friends. Our resident moderator in the Discord, Categoric Cow, was playing the game with us, so let him know how he did in the Discord. Everybody call him out, please. If people like this video review, I've got another game that I do want to make a review video for because I had a great time making this one. So let me know if you guys like this video and I'll start to make some more like it. All right, I'll see you guys later. Love you. Okay guys, here we are. We're all set up before the game. We've got the Western Romans all set up. These orange chips are our, what are they called?
Generals.
Generals, thank you. Because I don't have time to finish painting. It's been raining in Kansas for 2 straight days. And then we've got the Eastern Romans played by our moderator in the Discord, Categoric Cow. Say hi.
Hi.
And we've got the tribal peoples back here. The Franks, the Goths, and the Sassanids. That is myself. And then way back here, the menace in the corner, we've got the Huns, played by our friend Rhodes.
What's up? I never learned how to read.
All right, let's get going. Okay, we finished our first round here. And here on the Western front, the Franks have almost evacuated all of their territory. They attacked into Germania and some neutrals up there, as well as the Western Romans took a neutral up there. And then over here in the Baltics, the Eastern Romans pulled a fast one and took Dacia right off the bat, but then the Goths counterattacked and moved into an unoccupied Thracia, which is worth 5 IPP, so that's a pretty big blow. Down here in Turkey, the Sassanids just moved into Syria, and that's it. The Byzantines are on the defensive here, and then the Huns had a pretty explosive opening where they took 4 neutrals out. All right, we'll see you after the next round.
Okay, can you read this rule for me? I can't read.
Okay, we'll see you next time. Okay, here we are after the 3rd turn in the 2nd round, and the game has concluded. The Franks win. I would like to remind you guys that Categoric Cow is playing the Western Romans here. Go ahead and roast him in the Discord chat, please. He lost on the 2nd turn of the game. We're going to play again.
What's your excuse, man? You know how to read. What's your excuse? Pee-pee poo-poo.
And so the poor Huns here only got 1 turn.
I didn't spend a single dollar.
He didn't even spend $1. Assassins
I was
were
playing
doing
the
pretty
long
well.
game that was not meant to happen.
The Goths got pushed out of Thracia. So game over in the 2nd round. We're going to play again, and we'll let you know how it goes. All right, we're all reset. This time I'm going to play the Romans, and Categoric Cow will be the tribes. We'll see if he does just as well. And we'll see if Rhodes gets 2 turns this time.
Yeah, it'll be great. This turn, in between rounds, I learned how to read, so that'll help.
Okay, here we are after the 1st round of the 2nd game. Rome has been pushed back in France. Their galley died up here. That's sad. The Goths are going west, which is not their victory territory, so kind of work out with the 3D strats. Huns actually lost a fight in Sakai down here. They lost 2 infantry. And then the Sassanids took out a massive Byzantine force there in Syria. So, things are looking good.
You're totally a news agency. If this was a news article in Rome and the Huns were coming across the continent, they would report a loss of 2 infantry in Sakai and not the 40 cavalry.
It is true. This is...
Do you swear on your channel? Oops.
Yeah, a little bit.
Oh, okay, yeah.
Okay, we have successfully made it through 2 rounds, and the game has not ended.
Oh, it's true. We're farther.
The Franks are pushing west through some neutrals up north, and they stayed pat here in, I think that's Germania. The Goths are going west hard. Looks like they're making a push for Rome, away from their objectives, as are the Sassanids, who have elected to go south towards this money in Egypt before going to Turkey. The Huns looks like they made a turn into Gothic land. Looks like they're going for this rich little area where they can get their objectives pretty easily. We'll see how it goes. All right, guys, after round 3, the Western Romans have beaten back the Franks, but they pulled a quick one on us and invaded Britain. The Goths have also been pushed back almost out of mainland Rome. They've got a couple of territories back there, but the Huns have come in behind the Goths and crushed them there in Dacia, so now they're right on the edge of their victory conditions. All they need is 2 reds and 2 purples, and the Huns win. Over here, the Eastern Romans are collapsing a little bit. The Sassanids are about to take Turkey, and if they get all of Turkey, then the tribals win. So, looking good for the 2 non-Roman factions. The Romans aren't looking too great right now, but we'll see how it goes. See you after round 4. Here we are at the end of round 4. The Franks have taken England, and they also retook their capital down here in an absurd little fight where he hit like a ton of ones with his infantry.
It was awesome.
The Goths had a suicide run down here to take out some Hunnic cavalry, which did the job. The line has held for 1 more turn. And then over here, the Byzantine legions up in Pontus had a huge stand and knocked back the Sassanid cavalry and are holding strong. So, and we've also got this little spy out here just taking turf for free. All right, we'll see you guys after round 5. And here we are at the end of round 5. The Western Romans have pushed the Franks back. The Goths have been obliterated from the map. The Western Romans killed them. The Eastern Romans pushed back another Sassanid advance pretty convincingly. So the Sassanids look like they're out of gas down here.
Very tragic.
And they're still roaming around in Sassanid home country. And then the Eastern Romans came in and took 2 of these Gothic territories to try to get the win. The Roman win conditions, by the way, are to have 1 of each of the blue, green, and yellow territories. And so the Huns were preoccupied with retaking the green territory to keep the Romans from winning. So here we are going to round 6, and we'll see how it goes. And here, in the middle of round 6, after the Western Roman turn, the Huns and the tribes have conceded defeat. So the Romans win. The Franks have been relegated to England,
Which is pretty great.
for Queen and Country. The Goths have been wiped off the map. The Sassanids have 2 land units. And the Huns, their main force of cavalry was smashed in Goth territory.
By the Goths.
And so with the economies being the way that they are, the tribes and Huns have decided to concede defeat. And thanks for watching, guys. See you later.